Hi everyone, and welcome to a Ponziani opening video. This is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while because this is an opening that's near and dear to my heart. I've been playing this opening, or I did play, sorry, this opening when I first got back into chess about a year and a half ago, and it served me really well. And I think it's a really good weapon to have, and it's something that I still look up when I play over the board events to see if my opponent doesn't know these theories and these lines, and it's something that I'm willing to bring out as well. So what is the Ponziani? The Ponziani occurs after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and then c3. This is the main position that we're going to be looking at today. There's a few responses by black. The two main ones are d5 and knight f6, and hopefully by the end of this video I'll convince you to play the Ponziani, or at least give it a go. Now, I must say the first thing, this is no escaping theory line. In this position, the most common moves are, of course, the Italian and the Spanish. And the reason why I didn't play it when I got back into chess is I actually didn't like the positions that well. And a lot of them led to closed lines, and I just wasn't enjoying them much. Whereas I felt the Ponziani just gave a lot more open positions, a lot more tactics. I really enjoyed putting this into my repertoire. You do have to come up with lines against, for example, the Russian, or you might even face the French. So you do need to be aware of these two, but if your opponent goes to the main lines, this is a weapon that I really do like. So let's kick it off with the first main line, which is d5. Now, of the two, I'm actually more scared of d5, and it's not because the move is better. I think they're objectively equal. But the reason why I dislike my opponent playing d5 is because most of the time it actually shows that the opponent knows what they're doing, and knight f6 is more the automatic move that people will make, and they're more likely to make mistakes later on. But d5, here we have it on the board. And I think the best move here for white in this position, and we're going to be looking through all the follow-up moves after this, is to play queen a4. Now this looks like a bit of abandoning the open principle ideas, but really we are carrying a lot of threats along this diagonal. We're also threatening to take here and perhaps pin the knight if the queen isn't able to defend the pawn, which does happen in some lines. And I really think this is the main way to be playing. So we have about 4 responses from black in this position. I'm actually going to start it off with the most common move, which is played on bleed chess, and this is a mistake. So if we play queen a4, I've got this in a study, so it might jump around a bit, but bear with me. And they take in the center. This looks like a natural move because you're getting away and sort of getting rid of this threat that white has. But this is actually going to crumble really quickly for black. And if we just go back here, when this game has been reached, sorry, that's Marston's database, Leech's database, we can see that 63,000 times that people took, and in reality this is not a good move. So they took, we can now take in the center, attacking this knight and threatening to pin. They might unpin, sorry, this is the most common response, but now we can just take this, take here, and we've won a clean pawn. And really, black has no compensation. The development's not even that much easier because as soon as we play d4, we have completely fine development. We've got the bishop pair. White is very much to be preferred. This is already plus 2.5, so yeah, this is great for white. Another response that you might see, so I'll just hide the opening book for a second, is queen d5, but this is also not good for black because now we can take. Notice how the queen can't take back, because if the queen takes, this is another trap and you're just winning on the spot. But if you take with a pawn, we've ruined black structure. We can still play bishop c4. The queen might go back and we can play castles. They might develop their knight. Another nice idea here is to play d3. Often people will take, but this is just giving us great development where we can play bishop f4. Notice how the queen again can't take. This is another queen trap. So yeah, lots of traps, but we're not just playing for traps here. This position is +3. White is doing great. We just happen to have traps as well, and white is doing very well, which is why black can't really take in the center, despite it being the most common move. So you've got this to look forward to if you play the Ponziani. Now, there are a few more responses by black, much better ones as well. I think f6 is probably one of the best responses, because f6, and now we go in for the pin. This is the point of putting all our pieces on the light squares. They have to block and defend with the knight. If they try to defend with the bishop, notice how the queen is now cut off from the pawn, and we can just take here, and this is great for white. So they have to defend with their knight. We can take anyway. Black will take. We expand in the center. They will expand as well. We leave our knight on pre for a bit to attack the queen. The queen must go back. We move our knight because it was attacked. The queen can take the pawn. And yes, we're temporarily down a pawn, but I challenge you to play this position as black. And yes, the computer will say black is better, but look all the development we have compared to black, and the position just seems so much nicer for white to play. So I feel like this is a great line for white. Now, if we carry on, with our responses to Queen O4. Another response that black might try, and this is the second most common knight move after d takes e4. It's bishop d7, just unpinning, but this is fine for black because we can just take in the center. And this is fine because, this is fine because the queen is not attacking the pawn anymore because the bishop blocked, just to explain that. And really the strongest move here for black is to play knight d4, attacking the queen and going after this knight. The queen must drop back to help defend the knight and not double up the pawns. Black will take, white will take, and the computer will say this is even, arguably slightly better for black, but this pawn is still an extra pawn, and black really has to prove they have compensation. It's actually quite hard to do, so if I just play a few moves up, playing the line, this position, white is up a pawn, they have great control of the center, and really, I don't think white has anything to worry about, and the game will continue, and we play chess. And the last move I think we need to think about when we get to this d5 move after queen a4 is knight f6. This used to be the most popular way for black to respond, but this isn't as popular anymore because there's actually a way for a white to get an advantage here. Whereas in the other lines, we saw that black had technically equalised, although I think those positions are quite rich and there's definitely stuff going on. We've taken the centre with our knight using this pin. Black attacks our knight, so we have to take, they take back, and I think this is a very common idea in this position, and a mistake that white players will make, and I've even made myself in a friendly match, is don't take this pawn. This pawn is actually poisonous, and I'll just show you if you do take this pawn. It's not that white is losing on the spot, it's just that black is getting a lot of initiative, and they're even getting their pawn back, and black is the one to be preferred. They got all their pieces to develop, whereas we're all on the back rank, and our queen is just randomly on the other side of the board. So the move to play here is actually d3, just opening up your pieces. Black will castle, we can develop our knight, we can develop our bishop, we can castle, and the game can continue like this. I'm just showing you a sample line, and in this sample line there's actually a nice idea here for white, because black might be tempted to take this pawn, and we can take back, and if they take back with a rook, there's a nice sort of semi-trap almost that you can play here with bishop f3. The point being that black actually has to give up the exchange, and if they don't, they're going to be worse, because if they retreat the rook back, then we can just take the pawn and look at these weak pawns, and there's only one move in this position that holds it for black, and if you've not seen this position before, I would highly doubt that you were able to find it. Every other move is winning for white. So the move to find here is bishop f5. Bishop f5, sorry, not bishop f4, and this is, I think, a hard move to see. The point being that once we take the exchange, white's queen has to move. I think the best try here for white is to play bishop queen d1 if you want the game to continue. Otherwise, with queen a4, there's actually a forced draw in this position with a nice sacrifice, and then another sacrifice, and then black will just go backwards and forwards and repeat the checks, which is why I think you should play queen d1, because by playing queen d1, and if black goes in for the same idea, notice how the queen covers the g4 square, so there is no perpetual as much, and white is actually winning in this position because black just gave up a load of material for nothing. So yeah, that's all the d4 lines covered. I think this is the best way for black to play, and you can definitely delve into these positions a lot more because I've only shown like the first 10 to 20 moves in each of the lines, and really I'm just trying to get you into a middle game position, a position that you enjoy playing, where there's lots of tactics and ideas going, and that's what the main point of the opening is. It's not to win by 10 moves, although we have seen it is possible. Now the next line that we need to go over, once I just take a quick water break, is to play knight f6. Now I think this move, I'm just checking, knight f6 is by far the more common of the two, and I actually like it when my opponent play this. Like I said, I think that more mistakes happen in these lines than in the d5 lines. So the main move here is to strike in the center with d4. This is also part of the point of playing c3. Not only do we allow the queen to come out, but we're also supporting the center, so d4 has to be the best move. Now, there's a lot of moves that black can respond with, but there's a common theme that we're going to see. So if we play our move d4, again, sorry for jumping around, this is an elite chess study, but this is the best way to show it. Black has a few moves, and we're going to see the common theme is that whatever pawn black decides to take, we're going to push the other one. So in this line, black decides to take this one, so we push the other pawn. And this knight really only has one good square to go to, is knight e7. Some people will play knight b8, but this is already obviously just better for white because you've just developed a piece, but knight e7 is the move to play. Now, the best move here for white is to take the pawn back, so we're not down a pawn. But there's also a great trap in this line, and I'm just going to show the database. Actually, before I show the database, think of a move here for black and see if you can come up with the best move here. So the best move here for black, I think, objectively is queen knight g6, which we're going to look at in a second. But if I bring up the database, again, this isn't about traps, but you need to be aware of traps that do happen very frequently. We can see that d6, which is being played lots and lots of times, I'll even give, it doesn't give me a percentage. Yeah, it's being played, 60% of the time. This move is just losing. And the point is that you've opened up this diagonal, and we're going to crush you. I'm just going to hide this again. But now this is just completely over for black, and there's nothing you can do. You can block. We can take back, and we can take here again, and we've got all these great discoveries. Queen b6 is the only good try, but now we can check, defending our bishop. They have to block, we can take and take back, and castle. And you might think, this isn't a great trap, we're only up a pawn. And you'd be right, but this position is +8 because black is completely trapped. Their king's in the center, can't castle, and this game is basically over. And just to prove my point, again, the opening database, we can see that white is winning pretty much every game. And this is if black plays the best line. So if you go back a bit further, there's quite a few more traps that black can play. If you try defend, you can take here and notice the queen is being lost. So c6 is forced in this position. If we take here, you might be tempted to trying to see other moves that black has tried. Knight takes c6. If you try take with the knight as well, this is also completely losing. You take with the knight, take, and we have this nice fork. But actually, in this position, it's even better to take the knight because now we're just up our clean piece rather than having to be up in exchange. And yeah, this is just completely crushing. You can try any other moves you want. I encourage doing this over the board, but really this is just over for black. And I even have a show game. It's a really good idea, actually, if you're learning an opening, is to find some high-level games or some games from the past, just so you can see the ideas in practice and see what masters of the past has come up with. And in this game, unfortunately, black fell for the trap. And this is a really nice line because after the check, as we saw, they block. They're putting out the most resilient defense, and queen b6 is another try, but this actually fails after we take. King d8 was what was played. If you take the pawn here, then we're just going to get a queen and we're winning. So king d8 was the move that was tried. But this now fails to knight takes, the king has to move, and a really nice move in this position is to take and promote to a knight, because now you're winning the queen, and the game is just over, if it's not already over by this point already. And I think black resigned in this position. It's a nice game from 1992. But if we continue back with our knight f6 line, I did mention, in this position, when we get to here, the best move is to play knight g6, and white should probably take here, and this is going to be a game and it'll continue. However, this is the one time I'm actually going to advocate for a slightly dubious move, which is to play bishop d3. And the reason why I advocate for this move is because it leads to a magical line, and it's probably one of the coolest lines in this opening. And the trap is here, basically, that black might think that, my knight is attacked, I'm going to lose the knight anyway, so I might as well take this pawn before I take this knight, and I'll be up a pawn. And if we see in the database, black has fallen this for about 20% of the time, so this is something that comes up. And white probably isn't finding the right move most of the time. So perhaps pause the video and see how you can crush black in this position, because it is a really cool line to see in this, the King's Hunt, to give a hint of what to play. So the move to play here is to ignore that your queen is hanging and to take the knight. And really, black is just busted. If you take the pawn, so you try and avoid what's about to happen, you're just down a piece. So the most common move here is to take the queen, but this is now game over. As we're going to see, the king is going to get checked and moved out into the center. So the first move is just to check here. king comes out, we check again with the bishop, king comes out, and even better than taking the queen is to play this move, knight c4. The king only has one square, so he has to come to c5. And again, we're not going to take the queen. This is why this line is so cool. We're going to play knight b3, ba3, and we see that the king has actually got no squares to move to, and white is just winning and black is lost. Pretty much you're getting checkmated or you're giving up your queen. So you might want to try this. Queen takes to save your queen, but now b5 is checkmate, which is a really nice checkmate in the center despite being down the queen. The best move here for black is quite a hard move to see. It's knight takes c3, and you're just losing your queen, and this position is +10. We're up a piece, we're also threatening to take this knight, and this king's in the center, and we got much better development. So this game is just over, and I think this is a really cool line. And one day, unfortunately I've never had this happen to me in a game, because my opponents tend to fall for the early trap rather than this one. But hopefully one day I will get this one. That's somewhat of a dream. But yeah, we need to keep on going. One sec. This video is probably getting quite long, but we got to get through it all. The next move here to play is to take, and we're going to continue using our theme of if they take one pawn, we're going to push the other. So we push the other pawn, and this is probably the most common line that I see. Personally, is knight d5. I advocate throwing in this move as well, rather than taking back the pawn instantly, so you get a tempo against the knight, and now we can take back and we can see that we got great center. Black should play d5, but now it's having nice easy development. And I think this is a perfectly normal position to play, and if anything, white should be slightly preferred with a better development. This line isn't as exciting as the other ones, but you can't have gambits in every line, and of course this is just completely playable for white and quite a nice position. The last one to look at for knight f6 is to play d4, d6. This is a bit of a slow line for black, but now there's a nice trappy line here as well. It's to play the really odd-looking slow move, h3, and we're actually inviting black to make a mistake, which is to play knight e4 to take the pawn. But this is a mistake because we can take the pawn back. We can push, sorry, not take the pawn back, attacking this knight. And this is a very common trap. I think happens in the Alpen a lot when the pawn gets pushed to c3. And if the knight moves back, we're just winning the knight. And this is +3. The computer wants in this position to just sack more material to try and make up for it. But yeah, this is why h3 is a nice move. Also, d6 is just a bit of a slow move. You're trapping in this bishop. It's why it's not particularly a great move anyway. So we don't have to look at this line too much. Now, I've shown you the two main options that black can play against us. There's actually a few gambits that black can play black, and we need to be a bit careful for them. This is the first one. This one happens after the knight f6 line. We play d4, as we do. Knight takes, we push, because one pawn's been taken, we push the other one. And the c5. This is an extremely sharp gambit, and you really do need to know what you're doing. So perhaps if you're learning this as white, this is one of the lines that I would recommend actually memorizing rather than thinking about, just knowing the ideas. Is to take this knight first, and once black takes, we move the king up. The bishop goes back, and an important move to remember here is queen d5. This is the only move that sort of keeps advantage for white, and we're putting pressure down here. If black goes after our rook, which is I think the most common move, yep, we can just take. Takes back, we take the bishop, and they'll take our rook. And this is an exciting position. The good move here to play is to play a4, and the reason why we play a4 is we're trying to get this bishop off this diagonal. Don't make the mistake of playing the bishop here, because we're just leaving our king stranded in the center, and black is going to have a much nicer game. So a4 is definitely the way to play, and this is a really exciting game, and we notice that white is going to have an easier time developing, but their king is in the center, and we currently have 2 pieces for the rook. So yeah, crazy game is what happens when people play gambits. The next gambit to look at is to this one, and it's the f5, and this is actually called the Ponziani gambit, and it's what the entire opening is named after because of this addition into the opening. The original opening was called the Staunton opening, or the King's Pawn opening, King's Knight Pawn or something. This is the 5th most popular move on the database, but it's definitely something you need to know and you need to be prepared for. Now, as most lines, we need to strike in the center, so we're playing t4. They take. We take the knight, and they'll play knight f6, and we'll play bishop f5, and the game will continue like this. And it seems quite playable and quite nice here for white. We have an extra pawn, and black will be slightly better developed. Something you don't want to do is taking this pawn, because this gets really risky, and there's no real point getting into this line because black is definitely going to be the one prepared. So I just recommend avoiding the pawn and striking the center, and this I think gives a nice play for here for white. And with that, I think I've covered all the main lines here for white. I'm going to show two more moves, because these are the moves where black just sort of makes a mistake very early on. And this is often the thing when I ever talk about openings, is what's the point of learning Noel's theory if my opponent's just going to make a mistake on move 2? Well, I'm going to show you all these mistakes that happen on move 2 or 3. The first one here, we actually see, if I bring up the database again, so the most played move here was knight f6. The fourth most played move here was d5, whereas we have these two moves here in the center, second and third. The first one is bishop c5. This one is not a move really to be taken seriously. This is already really comfortable here for white, and the simple reason is we're going to play d4. I think perhaps people are just used to playing against the Italian or the Spanish, where bishop c5 is being played. Yeah, the Italian definitely. But we can just play d4, and we notice already we've got a nice center. I'm not going to. There's not much theory in this position because there just isn't. But white is already +1. But you don't need to think about it as +1. We're just controlling all the central squares. All up. This is perfect development for white. Whereas black really does have to be careful, and they're going to be slow. And this is just nice to play for white. But speaking of playing slow, the other move in this position is to play d6. Now this is just slow for black, and we can expand in the center with d4. If they take back, I'm just showing you a few more moves. And we can already see that white is doing much better. In fact, in this position, black has played a bit more dubiously than just d6, but black did play some normal moves. It's already +2, because this bishop is being sidelined and can't get back to defend this important b7 pawn, and white is actually black is going to get crushed on the light squares on the queen side, which is a very common theme once this c-pawn has been moved, as the queen can come out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this opening. Hopefully you've been able to take something away, and perhaps are inspired to play this opening as well. I'm not trying to think. Yeah, so this opening definitely does have theory, as we can see. There's lots of lines to play, and black has a lot of responses. And in some lines, black does equalize, but I think in all those positions, white either is up a pawn or has some kind of compensation in terms of being a very sharp position. And it's definitely not easy for either side to play, which I think makes exciting and fun chess. But yeah, hopefully you're inspired to play this, or at least give it a go. I actually use this opening as a secret weapon myself, although most of the time I'm knight f3 player on move 1. I do always check and see if my opponents don't know Ponziani theory. But yeah, just for watching, thanks.